The government has been cheating you for years and wants to say it's sorry. So if you're one of the many millions of Americans that paid into the system, that pay taxes, and you're currently receiving your pension as well as Social Security benefits, you got less than you deserve. And we're going to explain it in this video. So in 1983, Windfall Elimination Provision, also known as WEP, was a law that passed that affected how Social Security benefits were calculated for people who receive both a pension from non-covered employment. That means a job where they did not pay Social Security taxes, so that certain federal, state, or local government jobs or foreign employment. But also, this category of people may also qualify for Social Security retirement or disability benefits based on other work where they did pay into Social Security. So this affects this class of people who may have had a job where they did not pay FICA, as well as had a job that paid FICA. So this law that was passed in 1983 was to prevent double dipping of unintended windfalls, meaning the Social Security formula is designed to give proportionately higher benefits to low-income earners. So if someone worked many years in a non-covered job and only a few years in a Social Security covered job, they may appear to be low income for Social Security purposes and get a disproportionately higher benefit. So WEP was intended to correct that. However, WEP has been repealed, and this impacts you if you fall into the category. So what does this mean that WEP has been repealed? Essentially, it's eliminated. So on January 25, the new law of Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law. So this repeal is retroactive to January 1st, 2024. So this means if your Social Security benefit was reduced because of WEP, you'll now potentially receive the full unreduced amount. So WEP disqualified you from receiving a proportion of Social Security benefits that you should have received, but now this has been eliminated. You're also entitled to back pay for the reduction that was applied in essentially 2024. You don't have to meet any new requirements, no limited repeal conditions. However, it's a bit tricky to figure out if you qualify, and I'm going to break it down as we go further. So you qualify if you're a person who worked two types of jobs in your life. Jobs where you paid into Social Security. These are like most regular jobs in the US. Money gets taken out of your paycheck for Social Security, and you could check your pay stub and you will see FICA taxes that you pay. Now, there's also a category of jobs where you do not pay into Social Security systems. So this might happen if you work for the government, were a teacher in some states, or worked in another country. These jobs gave you a pension, so you didn't pay into Social Security. So again, for those who don't know what Social Security is, it's the monthly retirement paycheck from the government based on how long you worked in jobs where you paid into it. You'll see it on your paycheck. So WEP was in place to say you're not paying into Social Security as much as someone who has a job that's paying into Social Security. So also you have a pension. And because you have a pension and have not paid into Social Security, we don't want you to receive the benefits that will essentially give you a windfall of a pension as well as Social Security that you didn't pay into. So the problem WEP was trying to fix is that if you worked on a job that did not pay into Social Security taxes, Social Security sees it as you worked little or contributed very small amount into Social Security. Well, the system might think you were poor, even though you were actually made good money elsewhere and were paying into a pension. So Social Security will give you an extra help by mistake. That's the windfall that WEP intended to eliminate. So they didn't want people to get more than they were supposed to. So how much was reduced? Well, it depends. If you paid into Social Security for a long time, say 30 years or more, there's no reduction. WEP doesn't touch you because you have 30 or more years of history to qualify for Social Security benefits. But if you paid for a short time, like 10 to 20 years, because you were working somewhere else, your Social Security was reduced by up to $576 a month as of 2025. So take this example. Say you were a teacher in Texas for 30 years. You didn't pay into Social Security, but you did receive a teacher's pension. You also worked, say, 10 years in a grocery store. You paid into Social Security for that job. But technically on the books, you only qualify under the previous law, under WEP, for 10 years of Social Security payments, not the 40 years of work history that you have. So Social Security will only give you a small amount. But now that has been repealed. But WEPS, because you working only 10 years, WEPS says, well, you actually had a full career with a pension that you contributed to. We're going to reduce your Social Security check so it's considered fair. So the bottom line is WEP only affects people who get a pension from work where they did not receive Social Security. They did not pay Social Security taxes and also qualify for Social Security. So again, this is a category of people who had a job where they contributed to a pension, did not pay Social Security taxes, but had a job that contributed to Social Security at another time, but for a shorter period of time. And so in total, it reduces the Social Security amount. It doesn't eliminate it. It was to keep things fair, or so that was the point. So people don't get a bonus where they weren't supposed to. So essentially, the government didn't want you to receive the benefits of Social Security and increase the amount where you weren't contributing into the system. The examples of people who typically qualify are teachers, firefighters, police officers in certain states like Texas or California, also government workers under a different retirement system, or someone who worked in another country with a foreign pension. So if you're getting a pension from one of these jobs, that's the first sign that WEP might apply to you. Also, you also qualify for Social Security benefits from other work. So you ask yourself, did I work somewhere else where FICA taxes were taken out? If you worked enough in regular Social Security jobs, then you qualify for benefits. And that's when WEP kept in. So you have to ask yourself, do you get a pension from a non-Social Security work? Do you qualify for Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits? So WEP reduced your Social Security benefits. If you're still not sure after this video, what you could do is check your previous tax records and pay stubs. If you see FICA taxes coming out, that's Social Security. If you never had FICA taken out, the job was non-covered. The next thing you could do is check your Social Security statement. Go to ssa.gov. I'll link it in the comment section. Create an account and look at your earnings record. It shows which years you paid into Social Security. The next thing you could do, if none of those work, is also use the WEP screening tool, which I will link. You can use this tool from the Social Security website. So what happens now? If your Social Security benefit was reduced because of WEP, you are or will be getting higher checks with the reduction removed. There will also be retroactive payments, a lump sum for what you were owed from 2024 onward. The increase in monthly benefits for most began April 2025, which reflects the benefit amount for March 2025. What you need to know, there may be delays. So while the law is in effect, the Social Security Administration warned that implementing the repeal is complex, and for many people it's automated, but for many others it's complicated. So not everyone will see their payments or adjustments immediately. So some are still waiting for their back payments or new benefits amounts. So what you should do, check your Social Security statement or account. Check your bank records to see if Social Security has deposited any retroactive payments. Ensure your information, of course, is up to date, your mailing address, your direct deposit information. So if Social Security can send you, so that they can send you any old payments. What about your spouse? If this impacts your spouse and you receive Social Security benefits based on a spousal benefits. So let's say your spouse worked as a teacher, a government employee, did not pay Social Security taxes, had non-covered pension work. You, the spouse, tried to claim benefits from them and you were told you could not, or you received a much smaller amount. Now you can claim the spousal or survival benefits in full or get an increase, even if your spouse had non-covered pension. So there's 3 scenarios. Living spouse, you. So before you were told you get little or nothing because of your own pension. Now you may be eligible for 50% of your spouse's full security benefit. If you're a surviving spouse, before you got reduced or zero survivor benefit because of your own pension, now you may be up to eligible for 100% of what your deceased spouse was receiving in Social Security. Dual entitlement. If you qualify for your own Social Security and your spouse's, your combined benefit may now be significantly higher. This is federal law, not state specific, because Social Security, include SSDI and WEP adjustment, is administered at the federal level. So whether you live in New York, California, or other states, the steps for reconsideration are same. So your location does not change how the law is applied. So now that many of you are expected to receive an increase in your Social Security benefits, it might be the time to start to think about moving abroad now that you have extra income and you do not want it eaten up by the cost of living in the United States. So if you're one of the millions of Americans that are retired and tired of living hand to mouth, then think about moving abroad. I have a course dedicated to helping you move abroad that irons up the steps that you need to be considering before you take the leap. How to manage healthcare, especially if you're aging. How to select countries that have robust, accessible, and affordable healthcare. That should be at the forefront of your mind if you're at retirement age. Also, we walk you through the visa process, countries that you should be considering that have a relatively easy pathway to a visa and eventually to residency. The next thing you want to be thinking about is your taxes. How are taxes handled if you spend the majority of the year outside of the US? And so much more is built into this course. I built this course as an attorney doing intrinsic and forensic analysis as to what impacts a person who moves abroad to turn over every stone so that my clients are comfortable and confident regarding their move abroad. And there's no like, gotcha, or I didn't know this when you embark on the move abroad journey. There's also continued resources that are updated into the chat. So if there's any changes any foreign policies that change that impact you, that'll also be uploaded into the course portal. So if you're one of the millions of retirees that are impacted by this, I implore you to start thinking about moving abroad so your dollar can stretch a lot further and that you could have the time freedom, the financial freedom that America promised so many hardworking Americans, but is falling short on delivering. If you have any questions regarding this video, how WEP applies to you and whether or not it applies to you, please let me know in the comment section. I'm more than happy to do a follow-up video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.